Hey guys, welcome to another video where I'm going to be showing you my brand new turbocharger for 2024. So I went with the PTA Pulsar Turbo 5855A. So this is the equivalent of Garrett's G30-770 but with a twist. And when I say with a twist, I'm talking about the impeller wheel on the turbo, which you will see. Let's unbox this little thing. I actually received the turbine housing separately, the exhaust housing. I've already put them together. I'll tell you what, this is my third Pulsar turbo, and the quality just keeps going up and up and up and up every single time I order a turbo. And we just got a text message. If you remember from old videos, I used to say, I just got a text message every single time I got a text message. We got the installation guide, and I think that's it. Yep, that's it. All right. Oh yeah, and you get some Pulsar turbo stickers. See, when I ordered my first and second turbo, it didn't come with an installation guide, and they just have been getting better and better. So they tell you how to mount the degree for the cooling, the oil drain and stuff, like not to use RTV, to use the turbo gasket, which it comes with the turbo gasket and the oil restrictor. I'm gonna have to drill out the oil restrictor because I actually have a Turbo Smart oil pressure regulator that regulates it to 40 psi. It tells you all the bolts, different bolts, the max torque, which is sick. What else? Tells you the right type of drains, how to drain it, ball bearing, journal turbo, oil restrictor. See ball bearing, highly recommend oil restrictor. So for ball bearing, you can see it says highly recommended a oil restrictor regulator, which is what I'm running. I didn't have that at first, and I was feeding it unregulated, unfiltered oil, so bearing material got it through it. See max 40 to 45 psi oil pressure after the restrictor. So there is ways of testing that. On my oil pressure regulator, you can plug in a 1/8 NPT oil pressure gauge. Oil filter, I have an oil filter inline also. This is inline recommended. It's always recommended to run a filter. So if you ever do have bearing material, it'll get clogged in there. It's just that once you get bearing material, often it clogs the filter. But it kind of saves your turbo at the same time, which is good. Before starting the engine, the turbo must be pre-oiled. Pour clean oil into the oil feed hole and slowly rotate the rotor assembly until the oil flows out the drain. Repeat this process, then connect the oil feed line. Pretty simple. Pulsar turbo systems. Sick. Alright, so this is the 5855, aka G30-770. This is the 5855A. So Pulsar has two different 5855s. So this is the PTA turbo, which has the, I believe that's six big blades and 6 minor blades. So it's a 6+6, whereas the PTG 5855 has a 9 blade complete. So the PTG 5855 has 9 blades, kind of what I had on my 3076, which actually I think is very similar. So the reason why I went with the 6+6, and these are curved tips, just so you can see. I don't know if you can see. So this is a 6+6, kind of like the Precision style. Precision also I believe they do the curved fins versus the straight fins and 9 big fins instead of 6+6. So I'm not the biggest turbo expert. From what I understand and what I've read online is that a 9 blade full will spool faster because it's forcing more air, because it's got more fins, right? So it can suck faster and shoot more fins, but will fall up top because up top you have too many blades, so the air can't, the velocity can't be sucked through it. So it still has the Inconel 9-blade rear, which is sick, but having a 6+6 will be able to make more boost later on in the RPMs, so it won't fall off at redline like some of the other turbos. So technically this turbo should spool slower than the PTG 9-blade, but because there's only 6 blades and 6 small blades, this wheel is actually lighter, so it takes less effort for the exhaust to spin this. So the spool is actually quicker from what I've read online on a 6+6 versus a 9-blade. So you get the benefits of a lightweight blade and making power up top. So technically this is the more superior turbo. Of course, Pulsar has their new casting here. At first glance, it's kind of weird looking, but I think once powder coated, they'll actually look cool. So this right here kind of looks like a Super Mario pipe to me for some reason. I don't know. So it still comes with the port for the turbo speed sensor, which I'm not gonna buy because I'm not gonna be running this like 40-50 pounds or whatever. And it has a port here already installed on my previous 3076. I had to drill and add a fitting here. I might have to get a new fitting because I believe this is 1/8 MPT. I also decided to go dual V-band this time instead of T3, just because I've had a lot of leaks in the past. After the first round of DMCC, my turbo was leaking here. It was leaking from the wastegate. I sanded it all down on the belt sand at work, and it still leaked. What's really cool with the PTG and PTA turbos is the supercore, I believe you call it, is held by a V-band to the exhaust housing. So installing it and removing it is super simple. So I believe that the G30-770 uses the exact same exhaust wheel, so you can actually just put a G30-770. I would have preferred a G30-770 in the PTA with the curved wheel, but they only have the G30-770, and then they jump to the G30-900. They do have a G25-660, but I think it would have been a bit too small for my power goal. I'm looking to do between 500 and 600 next year on race fuel. Another thing that's cool in the PTG and PTA turbos is that the water ports, for one, they come with the fittings. The PTX 3076 didn't come with the fittings. I don't know if they come with the fittings now, but I think you can have the ports coming in and out from the same side, and then you have 2 ports on that side. So you can like play around with the ports and make it fit really nice to your setup. It has a really nice volute here. I believe this is a 3-inch, and on the intake side it's still the 4-inch. So one thing I noticed when I took this cap off is it's actually really nicely ported. It's huge. Like I can almost fit 3 fingers in here. Like I can fit 2 and like a half in here. I actually have a PTX 3076 housing here. As you can see, this is my first housing. It got a bit damaged from the turbine wheel coming loose. So the reason why I think this is a .60 AR housing and this is a .73 AR housing from what I see, so that's why it's probably more. So the design is a little bigger on the bigger frame turbo, but here's the really cool difference with the PTX and PTG and all that. So I had a PTX 3076R before, which is a 58 impeller to 76 millimeters, and then the exhaust was a 60 to 55. Now the PTA 30-770 is a 58 millimeter, so it's the exact same size of blades at the top to 71. So the impeller, the big side, is a 71 millimeter, and it's rated 770 crank horsepower, where the 3076 is a 76 millimeter at the bottom, and it's rated 750. So this has a smaller, lighter impeller wheel. It can make 20 horsepower more than the 3076. So by going to this turbo, we should see improved response and a little bit more horsepower everywhere. So I also went from a 0.82 AR housing T3 on the 3076 to a 0.72 AR housing on the 30-770. So that should really improve my response, make more horsepower. It's just going to be a better all-around turbo. I'm going to have to sandblast this. I'm thinking this time I am going to weld a 90 elbow on it. I'll show you guys after issues I have inside the engine bay. But the machine work is just amazing. Right now the turbo is, it's not stiff to turn, but it doesn't turn freely because it's actually like -10 outside. And it's really cold, so the turbo would need to heat up for it to spin like whee. But machine work is great. Their quality service is great. It's nice because it comes with the V-band with the ring around it, so it makes a nice tight seal. It goes with the exhaust V-band, and it's the oil restrictor, the coolant lines, the coolant fittings, which are -6 AN fittings. And yeah, I am super stoked to run this for the 2024 season. If I think that the response isn't what I want, I can always go get a, unfortunately they don't make a G30-770 in the PTA yet. I have sent them an email asking them if they plan to do it in the future. If they do, then I can get a 30-660 and it'll fit in my exhaust housing because the exhaust wheel is the same. So the PTG 30-660 is a 5467 blade and a 6055 on the exhaust housing, which is the same. Oh yeah, that's one thing I wanted to say is the 3076 is actually the exact same wheel size. So it's a 6055, so it's a 60 at the big end and 55 at the small end on both the 3076, the 3067, the 3071, the PTA 30-770, the PTG 30-660, and I believe it's the same also on the PTA and PTG 30-900, if I believe. Don't quote me, I'm not going to get the numbers out for you, but I'm pretty sure you can change like the turbo housing and keep it on the same exhaust housing, which would be really sick because you can go for bigger tracks with bigger turbo, go for a smaller turbo on smaller tracks and just keep the same exhaust housing. I kind of limited myself with the previous turbo welding my external wastegate on the exhaust housing, so I couldn't like switch exhaust housings really quick either. I believe it's a 2.5-inch exhaust housing. So this is my quick overview of the new PTA 5855A turbo with a 0.72 dual V-band non-internal wastegate. They do have a model with the internal wastegate. GS is actually running a PTA G30-550 on his girlfriend's MR2 and with the internal wastegate, and that thing just spools like this. I thought maybe about getting a G25-660 on this car, but I think the G25 would have been just a bit too small. It says 660, but you really need to be in that higher boost with a huge AR to actually be making that 660. I think 500 wheel horsepower, I should be getting it with the 18, 19, maybe 20 pounds max on 94 octane is what I was running on the previous car. I made 475 wheel with 18 pounds. So I think this one at 18 pounds, I'll be close to that 500 wheel horsepower on the 110 octane race fuel, and we'll go from there. I think around 24, 25 PSI will be the 600, well, 550 to 600-ish. Depends, like that, when it begins to become the efficient range of the turbo and starts to actually make a ton of power. So I'm really stoked to be running this in 2024. Obviously the car's a bit banged up from the couple crashes I've gotten. So of course the body on the Lexus is a little banged up right now because of all the crashes, the 2 crashes that I got, the one I got ran into, and then the one with the tire wall, which I don't even want to go into it. It was just a freak like understeer. I stayed in it to try and like grip up the front end. The front end never gripped up, and it just bam, like 80 kilometers into the tire wall. The tire wall flipped. It was on TV because they were filming it. It was a pretty gnarly crash. Like, my shoulder still hurts sometimes depending on the movement or how I pull something. So I've been doing a lot of exercises to re-strengthen my shoulder. Probably had I might have had a mild concussion. I don't know. Never went to get checked out. Fine now. Definitely next year, if something like this happens, I'll definitely like go get a concussion test, maybe a black room or something. But the guys wrenched on the car. They got it out for the 2 laps qualifying. Fortunately, I didn't make it into the show because they were only doing a top 8 and I qualified 16th, which if they were in a top 16, I was going all out. Like, there was no way that I was not going to be hitting people's doors. And I was like, qualifying, even on the sim, has always been my weak point. And this camera is really heavy. I don't know, I just like, I get into my head and I really need to start working more on my mental game and getting into a mindset that nothing fucking matters. All right, I'm doing this for fun. I'm not here to be like, yo, check me koi, see how big my balls are or whatever. I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing it because it's my passion. I've been in and around drifting since like 2004, 2005. Been going to the track just looking, being like, I really want to do that one day. But I was too hooked up into like all-wheel drive Evos and Subarus, STIs, and then I got my FC, which I didn't want to drift, and I got the S14, which I put the wrong motor because I listened to my buddy who's like, yeah, do a beam, it's really cheap. It was really cheap. It was hard to get it running because there was like no information anywhere. Finally got it running, drifted it once. Then I sold it to my buddy Matt, who made it into an SR freaking weapon. It's crazy, it's super nice now. It's all been like bodywork and everything. Oh, it's gorgeous. Matt, you did a really good job. But yeah, now we got the Lexus. I went through one motor with a really bad tuner, and then same tuner, bearings on the dyno, and then I finally found my tuner, and for the past 3 years the engine has ran flawless. The first year, bearing material went through the turbo, but it didn't spin a bearing or anything. It just like, I decided, hey, I'm gonna do bearings just in the winter because, and I decided I was gonna do bearings, took the engine out, pulled the pan. I was like, yep, this thing needed some bearings. So I did the bearings, and instead of doing the ACL race bearings, I went with the ACL Alu Glide, which is an aluminized silicone bearing, which, if there's micro scratches from stuff going through, it actually embeds into the bearing instead of scratching the bearing and sending material and metal through your engine, which is good, but they can't hold as much power. So like that 600 horsepower is probably max of what I want to do on those bearings. I actually have 2 more brand new sets of full bearings that I bought from RTM, because unfortunately, guys, RTM is closing after, I don't know, 30 years of being in a DSM market. Ziggy, he's really old now. I don't know how old he is, but he's like, I think he's in his late 70s, maybe early 80s, and he's kind of tired of doing it. He wants to retire, so I get it. But he was having a great sale, 30% off site-wide, and I just had to get bearings. I was like, 130 bucks for 2 sets of bearings. That's mains, rods, and thrust bearings. So I was like, no brainer. I'll have the spares. I know I'm gonna have to do bearings either this winter. I'm gonna pull the cap, check it. If it's good, we're good. But I also have the spare motor, which I'm only missing 2 rods and cams, basically to make, and pistons to make the 2.1 liter high revving motor. So we'll see how it goes. All right, guys, so we're in the trailer now. As you can see, I got the PTX 3076R Gen 2 ball bearing, 9-wheel compressor. So one of the other reasons why I wanted to change the turbo is because I've ran this in 2 very rainy events, DMCC and Redneck Rampage, and either it has a little bit of in and out play. So I don't know if rain got in, hurt the turbo. I also my feed line to my oil regulator that's underneath was completely loose, and I might have ran maybe like half an event with the oil pressure not being exactly perfect. Another thing is, you see the black there? That's soot coming out. So I've had to resurface this T3 flange like 3 times now. The exhaust flange, I've had issues in the past of it leaking, and it's probably mostly due to the exhaust making it spin and come out. And the wastegate also, you can see the black soot there. This is also leaking. Eliminate T3 flanges. I think it might be because it's a T3 and T4 bolt pattern. The T4, the hole is a little bit bigger than the T3, so that it's like putting a weird pressure on the gasket and getting bypassed. Another thing is this intake. My tuner said I would have problems with IATs because of putting the air filter in front of a hot rad, but this car literally stays at 150 degrees. Like, it doesn't want to get hot. I'll do 5 minutes straight at iCar, no problems. It'll be like 185, 190 Fahrenheit max, like beating the fuck out of it. There's absolutely no issue with it being here. The issue I have is this boot right here. Right now it's -10, so it's hard as rock. But when this engine bay is really hot, this is super malleable, because this is a LS intake that I made work on this turbo, because I needed to put a 4-inch filter because of the 4-inch intake. Anyways, by putting this, when it's really hot, it like, there's even like a divot underneath here. It's malleable. You can literally squeeze it. So I was wondering if I was choking out the turbo. So once it was hot, if this was squeezing on itself, making the turbo work harder. So that's one possibility. So there's the oil feed leaking. There's this. And maybe I had a boost leak here, and it gets its reference for MAP off the intake manifold right here. So the most I've seen was like 15, 16 PSI, and this thing's tuned for 18 PSI. It's supposed to be demanding 18 PSI. I think because of the dyno, the load is different, so like you'll see a couple PSI less on the street. But regardless, I think max was like 16 PSI, and that was after I freshly like surfaced the T3 flange. So I'm wondering if there's a boost leak somewhere, and it was just like over spinning the turbo, maybe, never know. So having the wastegate welded to the exhaust housing made controlling boost super easy. Like, it was like no issue. You want 10 pounds, boom, 10 pounds. It like, there's no boost creep, nothing. It would just hit that number you wanted and it would stay there. The problem is that these old Turbo Smart like clamp type fittings can only get so tight, like they're literally touching. And I can literally, oh, you saw it. It's moving. So you can see the aluminum, that's from it like bang, resting on my aluminum skid plate that I made right here, melting it almost. So after every single run, I have to, like after every single session, I have to come in with, and if I wanted to open my hood, I had to get my hood prop and literally pry it out of the way to get my hood open. So I'm thinking of cutting off that T3, T4 flange, extending it like an inch, inch and a half, and drilling the hole and adding for the external wastegate to go up and then back. So it won't be like this crooked thing, it'll just be like, it'll come up, and with a 90, have the external wastegate pointed there, and then have it go out the hood. That's the ideal plan. This is what I was talking about. I might have to chop off and add a 90-degree elbow, and then remake this pipe here. Remake a pipe here with only one silicone from a 2.5 to 3 inch. And then from this one, it's really weird how I just use spare parts pretty much to build my stuff. So I did a 2.25 to 2.5, 2.5 to 3. You can see there's a little gap. It's sealed, like the intercooler piping comes up to here, but still. And when you come to the cold side, I got 3 down to 2.5 to 2.5 there. So I was contemplating selling my ECU, getting a new ECU that can do drive-by-wire, but I think we're gonna stick with drive-by-cable. The last event I did, the drive-by-cable broke, and it literally stuck the throttle at 100%, and I did like 1.5, 2 laps with the throttle all the way stuck open. I was literally just slowing down the car with the left foot braking and clutching in. So I'm thinking go to a 3-inch throttle body, make a new 3-inch pipe to the throttle body. So I'll go 3-inch full cold side, 2.5 to 3-inch for the hot side. I don't know, you might know this guy. His name's Jacob. He's like from the, you know, Formula Drift podcast or something like that. Anyways, he wears a teal one, and I was gonna buy a teal one, and I was like, nah, I gotta do my own. So I bought a red one. Well, it's like a burgundy red, and I'll leave a link down below. It's not an affiliate link anywhere. It's just if you guys want it, support the people that support my buddies. So enjoy that. So if you have any questions at all about the Pulsar turbos, I'm actually a dealer through Evolution Plus. We've been selling a bunch recently. So jump on the Pulsar bandwagon. Wait, I have them here somewhere. Let's see, Pulsar turbo systems. I'm gonna quadruple check everything this winter to make sure I have no mechanical failures, no issues, nothing to go wrong. And I just wanna have fun with my buddies. And I wanna try and get the most drifting and being competitive in the DMCC series, the Pro-Am series next summer. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I haven't posted much in the past couple of years. I've had a rough couple of years. Everything's starting to get a little better, and hitting that like button, subscribing, writing comments saying we miss you, glad you're back, whatever. It's right here, right on the Pulsar turbo, right on my heart, next to the Valvoline and the Boss Master. Would you guys be interested in this sweater, shirt? I don't know. Let me down below. I can definitely set that up. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I cannot wait to install it and do a full in-depth review of how much power I made at what PSI and everything, because I think this turbo is going to bring my car to the next level. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Boss Master.